Hello, everybody. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Rachel.
And this is So I'm Watching the Gilded Age, Season 1, Episode 8, Tucked Up in Newport. Part of the people were tucked up in Newport. Not everybody.
Yep, just some.
Just a handful. You're so glittery. I only just noticed. I thought it was crystals, but it's all just that fun glitter.
Mm-hmm. It's the Danessa Myrick's glitter.
Very fun. Okay, so I want to start with Peggy. We finally learned the whole story. It's not scandalous at all.
No.
She was married. She was in love with Elias Finn. She went to Philadelphia. They got married and she was pregnant by the time her father tracked them down. And then she almost died in childbirth and the baby did die. I have my suspicions.
Yeah, because why, if the baby is not in fact dead, why are we trying to track down the midwife?
I think she's trying to maybe she's just trying to find a place where she can grieve, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think that baby's dead. I think her dad arranged some shenanigans because he forced Elias to basically dissolve the marriage. I just now I get why she doesn't want to go home.
Yeah, for real.
That's valid.
Yeah.
Don't go home, Peggy, but she did.
Because how on earth, and why would he think that it would be okay to draw up a document saying that he was married before? I know this is a different time where people's word, swayed more things than having actual paperwork, but where are the receipts?
Well, of course.
For the previous marriage, you know what I mean?
Just because Peggy said that her father thinks he's uneducated and ignorant and not a provider and stuff. I don't know. They seemed to be making a go of it in Philadelphia.
For real.
So anyway, she basically, the reason we find out is because Mr. Rakes comes to the servants' entrance of the house with a letter for Peggy. And Bridget takes it, but then Armstrong takes it from her and obviously reads it because she's a meddling old bitch. As much as I love Deborah Monk, Armstrong is not it for me. So we basically, everybody is suspicious that Armstrong read it the whole time. And so finally, once Peggy tells Marion about what actually happened, Marion is like, you have to tell Aunt Agnes, because if it doesn't come from you, it's going to be worse. And it turns out that Armstrong even still has already told, but she doesn't have all the information. So she said that she had an illegitimate child, that Peggy had an illegitimate child.
Fucking gross.
And abandoned it.
So gross.
It's essentially Peggy's decision. And she's like, well, I have to leave because in addition to this horrible thing that's just occurred, she is just nasty to me all of the time downstairs. And it's not going to get better after this. So and Agnes is like, I can't fire Armstrong because I'm too old to break in another maid, essentially. Which, it's mostly fair. She just is really hopeful that Peggy will change her mind. And so far she hasn't. It's not the last we've seen of Peggy at all.
Not.
So, but Armstrong is in trouble, and maybe now Bannister will get back in the good graces because poor Bannister is still
in the middle of the telephone.
Yeah.
And she's still maybe you can ask, what's the younger Jack. Maybe you can ask Jack how he served coffee.
Yeah.
When you were gone. And it's you were not happy with him.
He did a very mediocre job.
Yeah.
Very mediocre. I guess we can talk about Jack's plot. He all of a sudden, out of nowhere, started asking to leave a little earlier on his days off. And he has flowers. And so Bridget is suspicious. And Mrs. Bauer is like, well, you can't just be suspicious now that he has a new lady, a new girl, and it's not you. And Bridget's like, well, aren't you at least curious? She follows him. And we get all the way to a cemetery, which I was not expecting. And we get this whole story about how his mother died in a fire in Wisconsin with his aunt and the aunt's baby. And it's very sad, but I don't really get it.
Yeah, so he doesn't go visit her all year, but the month of her birthday, he goes every week.
I don't know. It's a really weird, it's a really convoluted plotline that, in my opinion, didn't add any depth to the story. It would have been more interesting to me if he was going to see another girl.
Yeah, and I just feel there are so many beginning of storylines or like
Yeah.
the beginnings of something in this episode when we only have one more
left.
episode left. I'm just kind of like, what are we doing?
So, like, I don't need everything wrapped up at the end of the season, but it's like, this was something, this is wrapped up.
Yeah.
There's no more story. That's it. And like, Bridget was super nice to him and everything, but I still don't think she wants to be with him romantically.
Yeah, because I mean, that would be the only feasible way I would see this changing or like playing out, is that all of a sudden Bridget has a change of heart, which is kind of gross if that's what it takes, because it's like she has like severe sexual trauma.
Oh, you have a dead mom.
Yeah.
Oh, and no one's loved you since your mommy. Don't get involved in that. Yeah. I mean, I like Jack. He's super cute. I think he's great, but like, I don't know. Especially, like, I guess you're right. In the second to last episode of the season, it feels like a weird complete story to tell for like seemingly no plot or emotional payoff. Like, I didn't need to be more endeared to him. I was already very endeared to him. And it's just a really weird one-off story. I guess I'm not mad at it. I'm just confused at it.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It's just very much kind of like, sure.
George stays in the city when the rest of the family goes to Newport because he has to have not really a trial, but like
a hearing.
Mm-hmm. And so, sort of randomly, Marion and Ada are in Bloomingdale's at the same time that Miss Ainsley, Dorota from Gossip Girl, is there. And the shop girl calls out Miss Dixon or Mrs. Dixon because she forgot her pocketbook. And so Marion, just being the sunshine person she is like, oh, I know her employer. I can take that back. And thus begins the biggest Deus Ex Machina in a show like this I've ever experienced. In a show like this. Like, I don't know. In like fantasy stuff, I'm always willing to like overlook it a little. Basically, Marion goes to the Russells and is like, hey, Church, I found this. Will you give it to Mr. Russell? It's for his secretary, Mrs. Dixon. And even Church is like, who? Like, what? And so George Russell basically puts all the pieces together that we don't have yet until at the hearing they call her. And she's been like cahooting with Mr. Dixon, who is the one who it has been like skimming money.
So he was the foreman on the project or like the building of the trains. And so he has been appropriating money.
Okay. Stealing.
Yeah.
And so I guess somehow Dorota, Miss Ainsley, she found out about it and kept it a secret. And I guess Mr. Dixon has been like paying for her to like have and do stuff. So she just sort of like let it keep sliding. But now it's all out in the open and Mr. Russell is exonerated and it's like everything's fine. And then Miss Ainsley is fired and she can only scrub floors for a living from now on.
Because he very much was like, I will hear of every job that you apply for and I will tell your future employer what you have done.
Now look, I agree that she needs to be punished. For sure. But it's Dorota.
I mean, she kind of helped like 10 people die.
Of course. It's horrible. And I guess basically the way she found she repurposed a letter that George actually did write, but it was about a decorator. Like, that's too expensive. Go, like, do something cheaper. And so she used that as, like, the proof that Mr. Dixon, for Mr. Dixon. So it's definitely shady and horrible, but it's Dorota. And that's what I can't stop thinking about. So Mr. Rakes is in this episode again. He is, like, all in trying to get Marion to elope with him.
Yeah.
And she is like on the verge of doing it.
It's just, she's like, I don't think she wants to elope because it makes it feel dirty. And then she even says to him too, like, won't I ruin your reputation? Won't I be an anchor around your neck? And it's like, how? What are we doing?
Yeah. Because he is like a lawyer, and I guess he must be relatively successful unless he is just like shining everyone on about what he's doing. But she has no money. And if they elope, she will have even less money.
Yeah, I really would like to know what the end game is here. Like what his play is.
Well, it looks like it's coming to a head in the next episode because Ada is onto her.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said something with like an air of finality in this episode, and Ada was like, in her elephant dress.
Mm-hmm. I think she's crazy like a fox.
Ada? Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Ada's amazing. I love Ada.
She got that third eye open.
Yeah. And I like, it's such a different role from anything I've seen Cynthia Nixon play before that I love it. Like, Christine Baranski plays domineering women constantly, like sun up to sundown. But this is like a really fun Cynthia Nixon character. So I love that. Oscar is still really making a go at Gladys, but now Mr. Adams is as well. He like followed them up to Newport.
He's just being a jealous lover.
He's being a super jealous lover.
And it's just like, you guys, again, what's the end game? What are we doing?
I guess I don't know. There's not really anybody else like spinning around that could be for Gladys that we've met yet. And we have obviously been talking about the fact that she's probably going to get with like an Englishman, like a landed gentry person from England. But we haven't met anybody else. And I just don't like Oscar with her. He's so much older than her, and it's creepy. And so now John Adams is sniffing around. So it's like Gladys is just like a glorified hag at this point.
I know. Just like a rotting carcass.
She doesn't know it.
I know. Ugh, God, and she's not even out yet.
Yeah.
And she's already got like these horrible like vultures like swarming her.
Mrs. Fish, I feel like, knows that she's a hag.
Oh, and she plays into it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, but it's also only to Mr. McAllister, and everybody knows them.
Yeah.
And Mr. McAllister, and like I'm sure his wife is fine. Yeah.
And she was all about the hot goss herself. I think they are a match made in heaven.
Mrs. McAllister is a delight.
Yeah, I like her.
Yeah, she's super fun.
I would want to sit next to her at parties.
So the Newport stuff was all pretty fun. Mrs. Fane too, though, with Marion is like, you need to watch out for Mr. Rakes because he's kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. He's everywhere right now. I don't want you to get hurt kind of stuff. I just hope she listens to somebody. This is ridiculous. What else are we working with? Oh, we got another strange glimpse into Watson, I guess, but what did they call him? The bald one?
Collier?
Collier, yeah. He's still standing outside that woman's house, and she sees him and sends the footman over to be like, do you want something? And he, like, says that his name is Collier, and then a shadow passes over her face, and she just turns around and walks back inside. So we are...
And he calls her by her first name after
Flora,
that. Yeah.
So we are no nearer to figuring out what that is. I'm very interested. Because he's very appealing. His name is Michael Cerveris. I don't know. There's a very appealing air about him. And then he and Church and Mrs. Bruce and the chef of the Russells are all in the kitchen later, and the chef had been arguing with a woman. You're right. There's so many threads that we just opened up like fully in this episode that they were arguing in the street, by the way.
Yeah. Which
I feel like would get them in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I just love that Mr. Church was like, you were fighting with someone in the streets. And in my head, I was like, in the streets.
Yeah.
like,
come on.
You out here in the streets fighting somebody. Yo, French ass.
The French chef throwing hands in the street. So, Watson Collier, it says Watson. I don't. Maybe he changed his name or something?
What are we doing?
I don't know.
I am confusion.
So he basically was like, are you going to tell us what you were arguing about? And he just stands up and is like, no. And he walks away and presumably goes to bed.
Mrs. Astor still won't call on the Russells, and Carrie's like, why, Mom? And it's just...
Oh, they were practicing the quadrille.
Yeah.
Carrie.
Dumb-looking dance.
It's super dumb. I feel like they were also bad at it. I feel like if they were good at it, it might not have looked so dumb. But Carrie and Gladys are still good friends, and presumably Carrie is like allowed to socialize with Gladys, but I don't know.
I don't know.
So it looks like next week there's going to be an actual meeting between Mrs. Astor and Carrie Coon, which will be nice, and it will start closing the gaps of the people I want to see in a scene together.
Yeah.
Which is Donna Murphy, Carrie Coon, Kelly O'Hara, Christine Baranski, Cynthia Nixon. Who else? There's another one. There's one more. Was that it? Maybe that's it.
I don't know. Did we want Audra McDonald in that?
Audra McDonald. She won't be there, but Audra McDonald. She was in this episode, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. McAllister was being a sneaky sneak. And because Mrs. Russell was like, I wish I could have seen Beechwood. I want to see. She asks how much the Astors paid for Beechwood. I was just like, ma'am, you don't do that.
Stop leaning into the nouveau riche.
Yes, it's tacky. It's gauche.
Questions like that, why you're not invited to the party.
And so they were like, well, she won't be out here for a couple of days. So Mr. McAllister was like, let's go over. I know the butler. And I'm like, this is not Pride and Prejudice, y'all. We can't just roll up in people's houses.
It doesn't work in Pride and Prejudice either because he arrives home when Lizzie is there with her aunt and uncle.
I know, but it was sexy when that happened.
Of course it was sexy when that happened. And in this instance, Mrs. Russell has to be led out the servants' entrance to where they're butchering all of the animals and walk creepily along the fence until she can get back to the carriage.
Well, and I thought that she was going to turn on her heel and walk right back inside.
Me too. She didn't.
But I was like, I thought it was a little silly because she was like, like feeling very just, I don't know. She seems tougher than that.
I think it's more like, because she also, like they all keep saying, she came from nothing. So she would have presumably been plucking her own chickens and stuff back in the day. So I think it was more of a flustered, like,
I'm back here again.
And getting like shoved out the back door kind of. But I mean, they so far managed to keep it a secret. But I actually kind of think that might be why Mrs. Astor comes to like see her.
Maybe.
Next week. So, which also next week looks like finally Gladys's debut, which will be fun. We are on the lookout for an atrocious lavender dress. Fingers crossed. It was like a decent episode, but it's also sort of just like, yeah, I think you're right. It feels like it's meandering in a way that like, I don't know that I wish it was only 8 episodes, but I struggle to make the reasoning for 9 whole episodes.
Right.
Because it feels like they were just like the Jack storyline and which was the other one? It was the Jack storyline and something else that I was just like, this just feels like time wasting at this point. Because we're not like doing anything.
Watson Collier thing.
Yeah. That's like a total of like 10 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, it's very odd.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've been dealing with this a lot this season with like shows only putting out 7 or 8 episodes and probably because of COVID and everything. And so it's like,
which I'm not criticizing for that aspect.
No, like, because I don't necessarily want to go back to the days of like 20 episode seasons or anything like that. But so it's like you have a compact amount of time, so we should be able to get effective storytelling. Yeah, but it still feels like there's not enough. Which how does that work?
Yeah, I don't know, because also, when I remember when I saw that there were 9 episodes, I was like, oh, weird that there's not 10. I feel like they probably could have filled 10. And I'm like, weird that it wasn't just 8.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like we could have condensed a couple of things and had some of the stuff in this episode also be happening at the same time as Gladys's. Like, I feel like they took a vacation in Newport and we took a vacation in Newport. Because, like, I don't know that we necessarily needed to be in Newport yet.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we could have saved Newport for season 2.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I just sort of feel like Mr. Adams could have started hitting on Gladys at her debut. Like, he could have crashed the debut. There's no way he's not going to get an invite from someone. You know what I mean?
Oh, he would have gotten an invite from frickin' Mrs. Russell herself.
Exactly. So
she needs to fill that ballroom.
She does need to fill that ballroom. So, I don't know. It's just sort of... It's one of those things. I guess Larry Russell is a really big hit with Mrs. Fish. He's so cute.
He really is cute.
I need Marion to start getting invited to some more shit.
I know.
She is stuck at home with Ada and Agnes, and she's not doing any fun stuff. And hopefully at some point, Mr. Rakes gets out of there. Although he has been just entirely on the up and up with Peggy, so...
I don't know.
I wish something...
No, I feel like this is now the 3rd thing in a row that we've recorded with just you and me, where I'm just like, I don't feel good about this.
And this again.
I know.
I feel like Outlander is the only exception because we know where it's going.
Yeah.
And like we know the like exciting stuff that's in the midst of all the garbage.
I just really hate Tom Christie.
Yeah, we just really hate Tom Christie. But I don't know. It's just a really weird show.
I said this in our Maisel episode, but I think that we are seeing the effects of the collective traumatization that was 2020.
Yeah.
And I think because what a year to try to be, you know, creative, and even 2021. So
I get it. I get it for sure. I am hoping that we get a nice wrap up for some stuff in the next episode, and you know, obviously like a lead into a season 2. But it's also I mentioned it out there. This show feels a lot less delicious than Downton Abbey. Like Downton was so soapy.
Yeah.
In a way that like all of the characters felt a lot more fully formed immediately.
I agree.
To which I think a lot of these characters feel fully formed. Bertha, Peggy, George, even Marion, like Ada and Agnes. But there's a lot of like secondary characters that I feel, and especially the servants.
We don't get a ton from the downstairs people at all.
I think is sort of unfortunate. And maybe it's just because it's like the previous generation was, I don't know, maybe not like as in cahoots with their servants, but like they were cahooting all over the place with Anna and like everybody. So I don't know. I want this show to be good and succeed. I do think it has been mostly good and mostly a success, but I do feel some growing pains.
There's just something missing.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like trying to stick too closely to like history, because these are like real life historical, and the Astors are real, the Vanderbilts are real, and so I sort of wonder if that's hindering it, because
but
like,
I mean, in Downton it starts with the sinking of the Titanic.
Yeah, but they're not real. They're not a real family.
Right, but then we do get I think we get royalty that comes to visit.
But I think the difference is that that Downton wasn't beholden to the history in a way that like this feels beholden to like making sure we ping Edison and the light bulbs and like, you know, the Astor's actual little house on Newport.
It's like, because American history is
it's also this big
compared to this big. And so it's like they said the thing when they said that, you know, Mrs. Russell like came from nothing. And I'm like, so are we supposed to get the fairy tale of the American dream or whatever? You come from nothing and you create all of this. Yeah, it's like, I don't want that. If that's the case.
I just guess I wish it was like a little bit more fantastical and like whimsical. Like I wish it wasn't real. Like we were just watching something else too, where I said something similar because it was like something based in reality. And I was like, I just wish this wasn't based on real people. And so that's sort of where I'm at, where like, I know that this is fictionalized and everything. And like Marion Brooke is probably not anybody, but she's also part of the part I like the best about this show.
Right.
So it feels beholden to the history in a way that like Downton was set in history, but it was only very vaguely actually impacted by like real life stuff.
I wonder, I'm curious if actual like people from the UK had a similar viewing experience watching Downton Abbey, because this is like, oh my God, the Earl of Sandwich, like I care, you know what I mean? And it's like that guy was actually an asshole or whatever. So I wonder if it felt more whimsical to us because we do kind of have that rosy tint.
Yeah.
Looking at like English history.
Yep.
So, and then us over here is just like, oh my God, we have to hear about fucking Edison again. You know what I mean? So you
might be right. You definitely might be right. I wish I could remember what that other thing was that we were watching. Because I want to say Pam and Tommy, but it wasn't that. It wasn't Pam and Tommy. It was something different. But I remember feeling this way again recently and just being like, I wish this was totally fictional. It would work, in my opinion, so much better if it wasn't beholden to this other thing.
Just sprinkle a little whimsy on it, you know, because I feel like watching a show like this, if something was a little fake, I would be like, yeah, sure. It was the 1800s, wild, crazy times.
Yeah, that's what I sort of don't really care about.
It's not like I'm going to be able to check my own notes and be like, what was I doing in 1880? I was not alive yet.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know.
Well, we'll be back next week for the finale, and we'll be back for season 2.
Yes, we will.
As long as there is one. We haven't heard yet, but I mean, I am loving it, and it's so fun to look at. Everything is like beautiful. All the decorations are the dresses really are hit or miss.
God, Gladys, we're at the quadrille practice. It was good, but then they stuck this green puff here. Why?
And then Mrs. Fish's outfit at tennis was just terrible.
Yeah.
And all these weird orange like chevrons everywhere. I don't know. Very bizarre.
And I mean, fine if she's a tacky bitch.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But
Gladys's tennis outfit was great.
Yes, it was.
That was great.
Finally, a good outfit for her.
Yeah, but like also Bertha has already ordered her coming out dress and her quadrille dress and her dress for after. And I'm like, Bertha, what are we doing?
Well, and if I could believe it if Bertha herself were tacky. Like, she doesn't have an eye. She has an eye.
I almost wonder if it's going to go the other way and Gladys's coming out things are going to be too revealing for Gladys. Like, they're going to be like woman dresses and she's going to be like, ugh. But for me, the showcase of the episode was Aunt Ada's elephant waistcoat. Amazing.
It was very cute. The construction was really good.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Pretty good episode, just sort of weird pacing and timing wise with a lot of information that came out.
I'd give it a solid sure.
I definitely watched that episode of television.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll be back next week for the finale.
Bye.
Come with us. Bye.